The confirmed Powerpuff Girls movie is on the way and it has the potential to be an absolute phenomenon. But only if Warner learns from its past mistakes. Today on Avengers Protocol, we're breaking it all down. Welcome back to Avengers Protocol, the channel where we analyze entertainment with the depth it truly deserves. If you're new here, subscribe right now and hit that bell because this is the kind of analysis you won't find anywhere else. And if you're already part of this community, you know the drill. Smash that like button. It helps us enormously keep growing and producing content at this level. Follow the channel. Every video we put out is worth having in your feed. Warner officially announced a new Powerpuff Girls movie at the Annecy Animation Festival. The project is still in early development, but it's crucial to point out that there are fundamental steps they need to take so this doesn't turn into a massive failure. Why? Because the Powerpuff Girls franchise has been recovering from a string of stumbles despite being incredibly popular. And this movie has the potential to be a phenomenon. Let me explain why. A lot of people forget, but back in 2002 the Powerpuff Girls already got a movie, completely faithful to the classic animation style. It was well received by those who saw it, but it was a massive box office failure. The film cost around $11 million and only brought in $16 million, a ridiculously low number, even for an animated film. And in 2016, they developed a live-action Powerpuff Girls pilot episode with a dark, heavy aesthetic, very much in the style of the CW shows from that era like The Flash. They tried to give the Powerpuff Girls live-action adaptation that same energy, everything deconstructed, the family completely dysfunctional, the girls now grown up and carrying deep resentment toward Professor Utonium for having been exploited as children. A terrible idea. Thankfully it was cancelled before it went anywhere. That precedent alone should be reason enough to keep the Powerpuff Girls live-action concept locked in a drawer for good. Another factor reinforcing that is the example of He-Man which, while a very entertaining movie, isn't hitting the box office impact it deserved. And He-Man still has a support network because it can sell toys, it's heading to the Amazon streaming service that produced the film, and it has broader profitability channels. The Powerpuff Girls don't have that same automatic safety net. That said, even in animation there's enormous room for innovation. First, because animation itself has evolved radically. Just by giving the Powerpuff Girls a more visually elaborate version, something similar, perhaps, to what they did with Super Mario would already be a massive draw for the franchise. They could turn the movie into a visual spectacle on another level, something the franchise, honestly, has never really been. Credit where credit is due to Craig McCracken, the original creator of the characters, for crafting such an iconic and memorable visual style. But it's important to point out that this visual style was intentionally minimalist, designed specifically to be faster to produce for television. The animation needed to be ready as quickly as possible to keep churning out new episodes and seasons. Film doesn't have that same immediate pressure, which opens up the possibility of dedicating far more time to the visuals, the aesthetic, and translating that original Powerpuff Girls identity into new animation formats. Picture that geometric, ultra-colorful Powerpuff Girls style, but in 3D, with textures like those in Mario. Something similar to what they did with Garfield in its recent animated film. It turned out visually gorgeous though in that case it didn't generate the box office impact it deserved. And that Garfield example actually proves something important. It's not enough to just give a classic franchise a new visual style, and it's not enough to simply lean on nostalgia either. The Powerpuff Girls movie needs to be something visually stunning. As stunning as the Spider-Verse movies were, where even someone who isn't a Spider-Man fan at all, who doesn't care about the character in the slightest, still goes to see those movies and has their jaw drop. That's what this movie should aspire to be. But it's also not enough to simply copy or imitate the essence of that style. Slapping a texture onto the animation isn't sufficient. The most recent Ninja Turtles film did something similar, a movie I personally really like. It turned out visually beautiful, but it wasn't enough to captivate a mass audience, or convince everyone to head to theaters, because it also wasn't an overwhelming box office success. So what the Powerpuff Girls need to do is take these new animation technologies and give them their own authentic interpretation. A great example of that is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which updated animation techniques with a texture that makes everything look like a living painting, something that fits perfectly with the fantastical atmosphere of that character's universe. Now imagine that same level of thinking applied to the geometric, ultra-colorful aesthetic of the Powerpuff Girls. The result could be on a completely different level. There are already several pieces of fan art online that demonstrate exactly that potential. It's also worth mentioning that neither the original article nor Warner has given any details about the direction this new movie will take. Which means there's a real possibility they'll adapt, or rather, insist on a concept that was executed terribly in that failed live-action project, but which could actually be extraordinarily promising in animation: the concept of teenage Powerpuff Girls. Except the idea wouldn't be to deconstruct the Powerpuff Girls, to corrupt that whole aura of perfection and magic that existed in the original animation. No. They can absolutely keep that aura of magic and innocence constantly challenged by the franchise's signature bizarre, twisted antagonists, but with the girls older and facing different, more complex dilemmas. And that would be a brilliant way for Warner to capitalize on the hype of another franchise that worked extraordinarily well not too long ago. Hey, pause right here for a second. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit that like button right now, it helps us out tremendously. And if you're still not subscribed, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Follow Avengers Protocol so you don't miss any of the analysis coming your way, and there's a lot more on the way. Every subscription, every like, every comment is exactly what allows us to keep producing this level of content for this whole community. Already done it? Perfect. Let's keep going. I'm talking about the K-pop Demon Hunters franchise. Seriously, several aspects of that story strongly echo core concepts from the Powerpuff Girls. The fact that there are 3 heroines, the fact that the world is surrounded by evil forces they have to face. I genuinely think this is a golden opportunity Warner shouldn't let slip by. But setting aside my more ambitious theories, who would be the perfect villain for this movie? In the original animated series, we had Princess Morbucks, who already showed how, despite being a kids' show, it tackled very adult themes. Princess Morbucks was a direct critique of the exploitation of child labor in the entertainment industry, and among young celebrities. And beyond being a villain, she functioned as a critique of the Powerpuff Girls themselves. That said, I don't think she's the best choice as the first villain for a movie. The Gone Green Gang is also tremendously charismatic and would work perfectly as a secondary villain. But there's no chance of them working as the main antagonist of a film. The same goes for the Rowdy Rough Boys, and honestly, if they used them, the movie would end up feeling too similar to K-pop Demon Hunters. So I don't think they're the best pick either. Mojo Jojo is iconic, has a massive presence in the franchise, and ties directly into the girls' origins. His presence could also bring the Rowdy Rough Boys along as a secondary element, so I think he can be saved for later. Because in my view, the perfect villain for this first film is him. For Latin American and international audiences alike, this would already be perfect simply because it would open the door to an extraordinary voice performance. But beyond that, him has the ability to turn the Powerpuff Girls' seemingly orderly lives into total chaos. He can add really interesting layers to the narrative. He could be the one manipulating other secondary villains as part of his plan. He has so much narrative potential within a Powerpuff Girls movie. And bringing in that demonic element once again pulls a Powerpuff Girls adaptation closer to that K-pop Demon Hunters energy. The connections are undeniable. So if anyone from Warner is watching this, here are my 4 recommendations for making this movie something truly special. First, forget about a dark story for the Powerpuff Girls. The characters can face complex themes, but there's an inherent optimism, there's light, there's color in this franchise, and that needs to stay intact. It's a fundamental part of their identity. Second, real innovation in the animation style is necessary, and that innovation needs to make sense with the Powerpuff Girls' identity. Not just because it's trendy, but because now it's possible to take things a step further. Film isn't bound by television deadlines. This is the moment to evolve the franchise visually. Third, it's essential to understand the real demographic appeal of the Powerpuff Girls. One of the main reasons the 2002 film failed was that Warner marketed it exclusively as a movie for female audiences, completely ignoring men. And plenty of men, of all ages, were fans of that show. The Powerpuff Girls, despite the name, has always had crossover appeal, men, women, all kinds of tastes and styles. And it still carries a strong nostalgic pull today. So it's worth focusing on both kids and adults. This needs to be treated for what it is, a movie for everyone. Fourth, given the nostalgia factor, it's extremely important to keep the original voice cast. As I mentioned, nostalgia alone doesn't carry a project. But nostalgia combined with innovation, freshness, and quality, that's the recipe for success this franchise needs. So what do you think? Drop a comment below, I genuinely love reading your opinions. Like this video if you made it to the end, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and follow Avengers Protocol so you don't miss any of the analysis coming your way. Every like, every subscription, every comment is what allows us to keep producing this content for this entire community. On screen right now there are more videos you can check out. Thanks for hanging out. As always, this has been phenomenal. This is Avengers Protocol, signing out.